Righto, so it's van time again. It's been a while. I've been up Queensland, I'm back now. Darren's here this week, so I'm trying to get ahead of him because I hadn't done enough. It's bleakly cold here at the moment, and I've got this gas heater running. That's a bit better. So I'm just trying to pre-warm everything because what I plan to do today is what I said I was going to do in the last episode, was to get all of this framework, get some 2K black on it, just to seal it up, and I'm going to paint the underside of the roof as well. So that had the normal epoxy, the 616 on it. So I've rubbed that down with a bit of 240, and I'm now going to put the CF black epoxy and just some direct gloss black on it. So I've masked up the areas I don't want to get any paint on because we've got to do the spot welding. So underneath here I've actually got the weld through primer ready to go, and I'll show you the roof when I do that later this afternoon. So just getting that all ready to go now. I don't really need to mask up much more than that. So I've got my temperature now up to 23, and it's important that if you're painting in cold weather, if you're working from home or whatever, you really need to get up over that 20 degrees. So I'm trying to pre-warm the steel because it might be 23 degrees on the wall, but I need this steel not to be touched cold. I'm going to let that heater run a little bit longer while I get ready, and then turn it off, get the air flowing, and try and maintain that 20 degrees. So I just mentioned the products I'm using. So it's CF Black Epoxy Primer. Now I like this because it's still a 2K, but it comes with this, and then and it's not really a hardener, it's a 2-part solvent. So I like to use this rather than the 616 on brackets or when it's out of sight like we are now, because I can paint directly over it with a direct gloss. If I want to paint over what I've got there now, the 616, you can't paint direct to it with a Deltron, you need to apply a primer. So this way I'm sort of trying to miss one step, I'm still putting epoxy on, and then I can go straight over it. This particular product is more an industrial product, but like I say, I like it for brackets inside of things where I'm not concerned about, yeah, I'm not sure what I'm not sure about. Yeah, so it's an industrial product and you can paint over it, which just saves time and one less process. Righto, so a bit more progress. I've managed to get that all sealed up with some black 2K, and over this edge here I had that masked up previously where we put the weld through primer on, and then on the back here, just lift that up for me, Darren. So it's come out pretty good considering the problems that it had. So what we've done this morning now is backmasked again, put that weld through primer on that edge, and then Darren's just now getting the spot welder organised, and we've got all our clamps ready here. So we'll sit that on and get it back to where we had. We actually put a couple of clecos in the front edge. So this front edge here, we'd used the reference points from the old spot welds to get it back to where it was, and we'll now plug weld that. But we put a couple of clecos in it, some removable rivets, so that we can put it back in the same spot we had it the other day, and get it all jigged up and then start welding. Righto, so this morning we've got the roof back on. Just trying to work out how to hold all of this together, so when we spot weld it, I'm looking to have a 10mm gap, even gap along the rail, but then I've also got to get the sides, there's a bit of movement in the actual body because we've still got these braces released so that we can get our width right. So we've had a bit of a play this morning. I've put some G-clamps on, tried to put straps in and pull things, none of that worked. So if you're doing this at some point in time, yes, you can move things around, but we're trying to make sure that our lines down the gutter when you look down look nice. and gaps are even. So what we're doing now is we've got these window spacers, the plastic window spacers from Bunnings, which are a thing that we use around here a bit. So that's them there, just a window packer. And then what I've been doing is putting lots of those together. So we got, 40 mil, I think the greens are 5 mil, so that's 35 mil. And I'm making those up because I've put those up on the inside here between this rail and the outside skin to push the skin out, because when we put the clamps on, it wants to keep pushing it in. So put the clamp on, get our 10 mil, put the block in the other side, and now we're just getting the spot welder ready so that we can then go along and spot it. So I want to get a couple of spots in this side to hold it, go over the other side, get it in to make sure we can get it all to fit. And then Darren's just playing around up here with the spot welder, because one of the issues is to get this to fit into the gutter without these touching on the body, because that'll arc out. So just had to bend those and move them around and grind them down so we can get them in, because we haven't done one of these before. So learning process, but we'll get there, and once we've done it, it'll make it easier if you're going to do it. Righto, so we finally got there. On the inside between the rail and the skin, I've made up blocks to go in to hold it out, so when we clamp it, it doesn't slide in. And then we're working on the black one's 10 mil, got a 10 mil gap all the way along. And Darren's now got this all to shape so that we can clear it. And I've just put some duct tape on here because it is very close. And if you happen to move it the wrong way while you've got the power on, then it'll arc on the side. So safety first, really, just to try and protect the panels. It might not come into play, but it's better off to do that than to have it at all. So we're going to get a few on this side. I've already got some clamps up there on the other side. We'll get the fronts all hooked in, and then we'll work our way to the back, and then the job of going along and putting all those spot welds in. Do we clean underneath? So one of the issues with spot welding is you need 4 really good clean surfaces. So we've just wire wheeled this top edge. The underside of that has got the copper weld through primer on it. The gutter itself's got weld through primer on it. And then under here is bare metal. So sometimes it's a little bit hard. It's not the biggest machine, but it normally does the job. Sounds better. You can see the lights dimming at the same time. Good job. Let's have a look from the other ways. So factory, I think they were like every probably 25 mil. So that's going to be that long process. We might have to take turns. Lucky we're all in the gym, Darren.
Yeah.
Righto, so I thought I'd come out and do a few more, or get Louise to film Darren putting a few more spots on, but guess what, he's all done. A couple of things that I like to do and that I have Darren do is when we put these spots in, is we actually just go along and measure where they are. Now they're not perfect because the thing's heavy and all that, but if you space them nicely, they look more factory. Now, by the time it gets the paint and all in there, it's not going to be that visible, and the panel van's very tall, but you can see them on the underside as well. And I just like to have that factory look, and you just need to spend that little bit extra time. So I've just got Darren with me now just to talk a little bit about the process when you're doing the spot. So a couple of, any tips, mate?
Just the tips, got to make sure the tips are always clean. After you do a few, it usually burns the centre out of them where they make contact and creates a hollow.
A hollow in the copper?
In the copper,
yep.
Yeah. And yeah, then it shows on the metal, there's a big dag hanging on the spot weld. So.
Okay, so that's just a case of running the file over it to keep it clean?
Yeah, just every half a dozen, just give the tip a bit of a file. And it just, yeah, it just makes a nice contact, and yeah, just make sure the metal's all nice and clean as
So
well.
you had a couple that were burning through and you found you needed more pressure?
Yeah, when the clamps, if you haven't got enough pressure, it doesn't actually squeeze the bits of metal together and make real good contact, and if they've got an air gap, it usually just blows the metal away.
Yeah, so then we've got to grab the TIG out and then remelt that to make it, you know, a nice clean looking spot. So little things, if something's not working, we've found in the past, if the surfaces aren't, all four surfaces aren't clean or have the weld through on it, and you get that air gap, they'll just blow out. And especially if you're doing plenums, it makes a big difference if they can all be factory spots.
If you want to have a look over the other side.
I know to say, have a look at the other side, because that's all been wire wheeled up.
Yes.
So we just use this sort of just in the drill. They're just cheap wheels from Bunnings. Just cleans it up nice. You can see in there now, you get that nice spot welded look. And what I'm going to do now, we'll just run along by eye. If there's anything along here that's a little bit in or out, we can just give it a push or a pull. We've got a set of duckbill vice grips that we use if you need to pull it out, because it's a bit hard to get out, which they've vanished, and then a block of wood to knock it back in. So looking pretty good. This one up here as well. This one's a little bit wider. It's a couple of mil wider. And what I plan to do now is I'm going to clean this up, give it a run the big sand block over it, just see if there's anything I've missed that I've got to fix, and then I'll get it all resealed up and we can move on and get these windows finished up. Righto, so the gutters are all on now, spot welded, so now I've got to do something here. So this is normally filled with lead. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to fully seam weld this, weld up the old hole from where it was, we've drilled out the spot weld. And then you can see I've got a line here and a line there. I've just put a steel ruler across here. If you come around behind me, you'll see I need to make up that gap. So that's normally filled with lead. So I'm just going to make a bit of 1 mil up to go between those two. So I'll weld it all first, then I'll put a 1 mil over it, weld all that up, grind it up, so that we get that filled up, and it'll be back to where we needed to be. So when we were doing the gutters, we just needed to make sure that we had this lined up so that we only had a skimmer filler once I put that plate in. So that'll be today's job. We'll get both those done, and then we've got to do the front ones as well. Righto, so I've got that welded up. Wasn't necessarily worried about neatness, just to make sure I've got it all sealed up. And then I've made this piece, and then I've put a bit of, I like to put the weld through on there. I don't know if it makes a lot of difference, but it's more peace of mind than anything else. And then that little piece there now will fit in there like that. And I'll fully weld that, grind that back up, and then that'll just leave me with a small amount of filler over the top of that, rather than having a, you know, like a 10 mil hole or something in there. Good catch. Righto, so that's just migged in now. So what I like about this PPG 616 epoxy is when you weld next to it, it'll burn a bit like that. But I've just run the wire wheel over to show you that it doesn't actually peel it at all. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't blister. It'll just turn this red colour. So when I go to sand that, I don't have to worry that I'm going to actually have a problem because of been welding where the epoxy is. So one of the benefits of a good quality product. Got that cleaned up, looking pretty good, but I just decided on the end of this gutter here, I've just got the MIG on a really low setting and just whacked a few tacks around the end here so that I can round it off, so that when I'm cleaning the car later, it's not going to be sharp like a razor blade, because the bottom of these, I better do that one as well. Normally they're really sharp, so a little bit of MIG and that'll let me sand it up, give me something a little bit softer on my hands. Righto, the panel van roof is pretty much back on. I've still got to do this little bit here, but keep running out of time and I need to make sure that I get all of this stuff sealed up. So I've got all this bare metal and all this nicely finished spot welding and all. And I can't afford to leave that hanging around in bare metal. So I've cleaned all that up, done a bit of welding in around here and here, filled this up to get rid of the lead join, the thickness. It'll still have a bit of filler in it, but I'm just trying to avoid having that sort of 10 to 15 mil of filler. So all that's on nicely. And I've just done a bit of a soft mask here. I went to mix up some product and realised I didn't have enough to paint the whole roof. Originally I was going to try and get a bit of filler into that as well, but that's not going to happen. So I just decided Sunday to just get it sealed up. That's been cleaned up after being plug welded. So I just need to seal up some of this bare metal and then I can work on progressing forward. So I'll just get a couple of coats of DP616 epoxy urethane primer onto there, and then I can start thinking about getting the top of the roof organised. So there we go, that's all sealed up. The next job for me now, where on the roof, where it had pretty heavy rust that I've cleaned it all up, it's going to want to skim a filler in it. So I'll do that and then skim along the sides here as well, through here, where we've welded all that and these sort of things now. And of course I've got to weld this line yet. So one piece at a time, but we'll get there in the end. If you're looking to do something about the dust in your workshop, think about going to something like this Mercer system. Now I've been using it for a long time now. It's distributed by PPG in Australia. Great product. It's not the cheapest on the market, but it's a great product and it will help you to not only keep your workshop clean, you'll get really good results as well. Righto, so I thought I'd better try and do something with this corner. So one of the issues you have with these older cars is nothing really fits very well from the factory. And if you go back and look at the earlier videos we were doing, there was a whole lot of lead in here and it was almost like they just got a big lump of wood and knocked it in and filled it up with lead. So when we put the gutters back on, we've set this up the same distance out from the gutter all the way around. And then the same on the top, we've got a nice even gap, but now I've ended up with a variation from here to there of about 5 mil. So this morning I decided, right, I'm going to do something about that. So I'm going to actually cut along this line so I can move this out so it'll come out on a slight angle to pick up this point, and I'll work out whether I keep this factory line all the way down or whether I actually get rid of that and taper it out. But what I've got to do is I've got to get this up to here, and I should have my new gutters the next week or so from Jamie for around the opening here. But while I'm working on that, I've also got to get this point down. So we've welded the front across here back onto the original spot, so I know the roof's back onto the pillar exactly where it was. And I looked at it and I thought, it doesn't look right. So now I've gone and grabbed the mouldings, and I'm sitting the mouldings on to work out where they go, because if people have been following what I do, I like to have all this stuff fitting nice. And fortunately I've got quite a few sets of these from the different builds we've done. And sometimes the issue is what did it look like originally? So these I would have thought would be dead straight, but I've got about 3 pair and they've all got a slight curve in them. So that would enable it to come up through here. But the issue I'm having today is that if I follow this and get my nice gap along here and then around here, this part of the roof here won't allow it to sit down, and I've put a pencil line on there to where I think it needs to go. So I'm trying to make my mind up now. I may end up cutting around that very edge there, knock it down, get everything to fit, because I need when this is finished, for this moulding, I'll leave that one off there. I need this moulding to sit down inside like that. But as you can see here, I've got this massive gap. So the only way, and the moulding is not meant to bend that much. Now I know that there was some lead in here when we pulled it apart, but the first clip, surprising how strong this tape is. This first clip here is going to hold this moulding out against the body. So it's going to pull it out there and hold it there, which means it's not going to sit in there. And you'll see a lot of these cars where the mouldings are sitting up on top of the panel like that. They're not down inside. So what I'm going to do is mess about a bit longer, get everything sitting in place. So I've got my clips on here. So I know this is correct. I'm going to bring it up there. I'm going to modify this corner so that it'll fit down in there. When we put our screen in, you know, in another 12 months time probably, I know it's going to fit. Too often people go, oh yeah, that's where it was, weld it all up. When they go to put the windscreen in, the mouldings don't fit and the car's painted, so it's too late. So this trial fit process, I'm very big on, and this is the start of it on this car to make sure all these things fit properly. Righto, so as per usual, I've rushed off and done it, and Louise wasn't there, so I haven't filmed it, but I'll show you what I've been doing. So I've got that to sit down now, and what I've done is I've just used a dolly in the back here, and I've been able to knock this back edge back that, I don't know, probably 3 mil that I needed, and it really hasn't ballooned it up at all. So there's going to be a fair bit of filler work around here, so I wasn't overly fussed. So what happens is a clip just here, so that'll go up on that clip, and there's one down here, it'll go there. And you can see now that's sitting down flush all the way around. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the other side to the same stage and have it all clipped on and all in place to make sure that that all fits. Now the gap through here, this is where I was saying earlier where the factory lead went from this point down. So I'll probably make that edge up, or I will make that edge up with a MIG and file it up so that I've got a nice steel edge all the way around. And what we've done in the past, the last clip on this side is here. I'll probably put an extra one up here. So I think might have been on the XB coupes. They actually had an extra clip here put on with a self-tapper rather than on the clip. So we'll definitely put an extra one there to make sure that holds down, because I like to have those mouldings looking really good. Now, the bit that I did that you didn't see was to get this to go back in. What I've been able to do is use this dolly. So it's just a bit of steel that was laying around. That's solid, and I've just got a nice radius on the edges of that. So I've gone in there with that. And I've driven that back to the pencil line that I had. And like I said, if it didn't go back, I would have cut it, but fortunately it went back in. And one of the issues when you're doing these is you need to have this lower edge in as well, because that has got to be able to sit down in there and have enough room, and remembering it's going to get primers and paint and all in there as well. So now that I've got that to sit down, this is a little bit sharp here still. I'm just going to knock that around a bit and get myself to a point where I can just run a skimmer filler around that corner so that it matches up with the same radius as that. So a little bit more banging to do yet, but before I do any more here, I want to do the other side, because the width of this moulding makes a big difference how it pushes the corners out. You might be able to see from the back, or you can see from the back here, it's actually got a step in the back of that moulding to take the one that comes over the top of it. And if you have when that goes on there, like that, if you push this too far up onto that ridge, it then wants to sit out. So when you go to put it back in here, this is higher than that. So it's important to get everything centered and in the right position, so when it goes in, it sits nice and flush. Right, the other side. Now, what I've done here is I've got this one screwed down on the proper clips so that I know my height and everything's correct here, and that's a little bit adjustable through the up and down through here. So when we put our front guard on there, the gap between the guard and here is important. But what I'm working on now is this side. So that'll fit down into there, nice. And then up here, this side fits better than the other side through this point, but we're still riding on this corner. So we've got a little bit of taper, not as much as the other side. And then what I've done is I've just used a ruler through here, a steel ruler, to make sure my height is correct. So at the moment that still could go down a little bit. I've got it just hooked up here so I can knock that down. Now I've run the pencil around this, and if I can get it back off, that's just sitting on the pins. So you've got to be very careful with these. It doesn't take much to actually bend them. Take that off, you can see here my pencil line. So that's where I need to knock that back now so that this will sit in there and let that fit in nice. See how nice this gap is? On the other side there was probably a couple of mil gap. So what I'll do now, using that dolly, try not to get in the way of the camera, is I'm just going to knock that a bit backhanded here, but the trick is to do it nice and slow. So I've probably got half of it. If I just give it a big whack there, I'm going to end up with a dent, and I'm trying not to get this to fill, because knocking this in potentially is going to bring the metal up. But I've got to fix all this with filler anyhow once I get it all into place. Now that's getting close there now, but I need to get the inside up as well. Microphone's flopping around on me as well. Now let's just have a look. When we sit that in there, so I need it up there. So I've got this outer edge pretty close, but I've got to get more room for it to sit down in. At the moment it's sitting up on the top edge, but not on the inside there. Not the prettiest thing, but it'll achieve the result, I think. Right, so you can see how that sits down in there better now. I'll put the rest of it on, see how it looks. Right, now, so we're still a little bit gap now, which was sort of perfect without the corner on. So I need a little bit more here. But like I said before, on the other side, this moulding does curve a bit, so it's going to want a bit of filler in here, or a bit of, I'll weld that up probably. So it's not bad, but I just need a bit more room in the back here. So rather than show you all that, I'll just hammer it up and get it to a point where it all sits in there nice. I would say I need this behind here back so that the corner can go in to let this moulding go right back, so it sits like that. But once I take that off, see how it goes back in, and I'll put that on. If you're lucky, it'll go back on. Once this pushes down, it pulls this away from the body. So I'll persevere a bit longer, and then I'll show you the result when I get done. Righto, so it's all in. I've got it to a point now where I'm happy with the way it sits down. And what I need to do now is weld this corner to the pillar, and then fill up the gap where the lead would normally be, as I've been doing on the back. And then once this is held with the clip there, I'll just match this up through here with some steel with a MIG. And then I can move on to what I was trying to do, which was this bit up here. Now I have this right and this right, I'll be able to get this bit here, get this welded up, then we can get the gutters on it. Righto, so that's the first stage of the welding. So I've made sure this and this were level, and then pulled this down with a clamp, tacked it all in place, then I've run a heap of weld on there with a MIG. And I'll just give that a quick grind up now, get an idea of what I've got to add, and then keep going. Righto, so I levelled up that first lot, and now I've just smashed a big run along there. So my MIG's only a little MIG, but I'm on the third setting, plenty of wire feed. Just keep it clean with a wire brush. Now I'll level that up, see how we're looking. Righto, looking much better. So I just need to get my taper on the bottom here right, and I want a little bit more in here to get this radius to look more like this. And then I'll put the file on there in a minute and just get that shaped up a bit nicer. But you can see what I'm trying to do there. It's starting to look the part now. Righto, so a combination of flapper disc and the little Mercer, little small one with the I've been using the flapper on that one as well. So that's nice just to run up and down. And then I've had a couple of files on there just to make sure I've got it nice and flat. So just a full size file, just a single cut file, another little one. I've just been running it up and down. So I've got a couple of little lows in here that I'll put a little bit of weld in those. Now a lot of people might think, well, there's a lot of weld there, but if you've got a little weld, like a little dip like that, and you put high build primers or fillers in it, it potentially is going to shrink a bit, and then it'll look like something's coming back. The same here, just the edge of a weld there. I'll just put a little bit more in those and tidy those up. But for the sake of the video, I just wanted to get that to a point where you could see the difference you can make. And that's probably, you know, I might have messed around for 45 minutes to an hour to get that welded up and ground up. Adds up when you do a whole car though. Righto, so I've done a little bit of cutting here now. So I've just cut the overlaps off so that I can pull this up, clamp it in position. And I ended up cutting on the inside because there's a double panel in behind here. I just need to cut through that. I thought I'll run up behind that and I'll run offline a bit, but it's worked out pretty good because it's just letting that come away, and nice taper through here now. So I'm going to clamp that up, and then I'll put a few tacks on it, knock it into shape, and then weld it up just with a MIG, I think, because a few gaps there. Righto, so I tacked that all together, pushed it around a bit, and now I've just put some weld. I'll give that a little wire wheel just to make it look a little bit prettier, because it's not real pretty, the old MIG. So I'll give that a grind up with the 40 grit now, and we'll see what we've got, and then put a bit of shape into it. Righto, so I'm pretty happy with that now. This little pencil line here, my plan is to continue that line through and fade it out, and then this line coming down here, I'll bring it down and I'll fade it all into this corner. I just need to wait for my drip gutters now, so I spoke to Jamie the other day, he's pretty much got them organised. Then this one now comes through, it'll run down into there as well, and when I put my ruler on there, I'm within probably 1 mil all the way around. I can get access behind, so if I want to do a bit more I can. So I'll give you an idea, I've got a fair mess going on, tools everywhere, but in actual time to get the 2 pillars welded up, and I've probably still got another half hour or so on each side, and to get this one side to that point, today I've got about 2.5 to 3 hours in that, so that's where the time goes. But if you're looking to get that nice clean look, you just got to spend the hours. So that's going to round up this episode. Louise will piece that all together, and I hope you enjoy that part. That's pretty much the roof on now. Just got to get them gutters on the sides, and the next stage will be to get these sides welded up. So I've got to weld all the way along that body line, and then that'll let me do the steel on them windows. So they're all welded in, but I just got them covered up so they don't rust anymore, because I need to do a bit of heat shrinking. But all in all, very happy the way that's all come out, and we'll be able to move on in another couple of weeks, so that'll be good. So thanks for joining us, and as per usual, bye for now.